Hi, my name is Baz Raymond. I am a solutions architect with Nutanix, and I am joined today by Troy and by JC for a session called The Bleeding Edge Implementing S4 HANA at JR Simplot on HCI with the right partners. Now, that title is incredibly long. Sounds complex. It's not so much. But let's start off with a quick introduction. JC, take it away.
Thanks, Boz. My name's JC Miller. As Boz mentioned, I'm with the JR Simplot company here in Boise, Idaho. Been with the company about 16 years, and the last couple of years I've spent working really closely on a project with Troy.
Hello, I'm Troy Ladish. I'm a senior ERP infrastructure engineer for the JR Simplot company, alongside with JC, and I've been with the company just shy of 15 years. And over the last couple of years, we've been working on a project called Bedrock. And from there, we can take it away.
Excellent. Thank you, Troy. Now, some people out there might already know the Simplot company. Some of the people viewing today might not. So, JC, could you maybe tell a bit more about the Simplot company, what we might know you guys from for the people that don't?
Sure. We're a privately held agribusiness company that spans the entire mine to plate. So that means from mining phosphates to make fertilizer to advising farmers on their crops and what they need to be successful, to then buying the harvested crops, and we do food manufacturing, also a big cattle feeding operation. So we're really kind of across the board. Do you want to add anything, Troy?
Yeah, I do. Across the board and across the globe, from the United States, China, Australia, Japan, the list goes on. Everywhere from land to sea. And with that, I think I'll kick it over to Boz again.
Okay, excellent. Thank you. This entire project that we're going to cover started because of a project called Bedrock. Now, some people might have instant images of the Flintstones, but I'm assuming there's more to it to that. So, Troy, could you give me just a quick overview of what this project entails?
Yeah, sure. So Bedrock, you can think of that as a foundation. At the Simplot company, we were looking to build a new foundation for processes and workflow within the company to create unity between the varying business groups. And from an IT perspective, it really just meant reducing the amount of managed applications internally, primarily the fact that we have 30 plus ERP systems. JC, you want to add anything to that?
Sure. Yeah, like you said, all about building a new foundation for the company moving forward. To use the trendy buzzword, it was the beginning of our digital transformation. So implementing SAP as our new ERP.
Excellent. Now, that sounds like quite a big project to master. I mean, there's a lot of moving parts, a lot of countries involved, different systems that you have to migrate. Were there any particular overall project challenges that stand out that you can talk about or maybe share a bit more about, JC?
Sure. Happy to, Buzz. So from an infrastructure standpoint, one of the big challenges we ran into early on was all the unknowns we were working with. So we had to build an infrastructure without even knowing what was going to be running on it, what the sizes were. We had to just kind of make our best guess and start from there. And then as we moved further through the project with our integrator, things started taking shape and becoming more clear, and we had better details. And with any big project like that, you're going to run into challenges no matter who you're working with as far as integrators, technology vendors. In this case, we feel pretty lucky because when we did run into challenges, we had great partners to lean on with Nutanix and our hardware vendor as well. So, Troy, what are your thoughts on that?
Sure. So I think one of the largest challenges of the project, being that it was led by IT, being an IT initiative, was the change in business process meant that the first step was to get the business leaders on board with what IT wanted to do. For IT staff such as JC and myself, it seems like just a matter of building new infrastructure like we do day to day. But for the business users of the various applications, that could mean changing the way they've been doing their job for years. So really just getting the entire company on board, and the different leaders from each group had to all decide we want to take this step forward.
Okay, so this was more of the IT department leading the charge and saying, "Hey, we can make things better."
Yes, it was.
Now, okay, so at the time when we started the project, Nutanix was not per se a relatively new solution, but SAP HANA on Nutanix was not that well proven. I can imagine that that was not an easy decision. What made you go with Nutanix, Troy?
Just the fact that we wanted an easy, scalable solution. And with what we had used, don't want to call it legacy or anything like that, but the build out, the add on, it just was not the same as what we saw for as far as potential with Nutanix. And JC, can you add to that?
Yeah, I'd agree. It was mainly the desire to get ahead of the future a little bit and have that ease of management and scalability that we didn't get from our old 3-tier architecture, like Troy mentioned. We wanted something that was a building block for the data center so we could just bring new blocks in when we needed to, when we needed to expand. Like I mentioned earlier, we didn't have solid requirements, so that flexibility was key to us.
Okay. So, along with all projects of this size, um, there's probably been various challenges throughout this entire process. Some of them tend to stick out a bit. Could you share some of your experiences with those challenges, or maybe go into one or two topics that stood out for you in terms of what came up, what was unexpected, what went well, what maybe was a bit harder to go over? JC?
Sure. So one of the big challenges we ran into was when we went to implement RDMA, which is an acceleration technology for the network. And due to some driver issues from a certain vendor's network card and how it was interacting with the Nutanix software, we were seeing some major problems whenever we tried to implement it. And I mean, it was to the point where even CVMs were crashing and that kind of thing. So engaging with Nutanix support and Boz and his team, the engineering guys, they were able to pull multiple vendors together to diagnose the problem, provide us CAP support, which is a dedicated support engineer at Nutanix, and he was keeping us up to date every day, sending reports out. They stuck with us all the way through go live, and we even had Boz and one of his colleagues out on site for our go live to make sure everything went smooth. So it was a pretty big problem that we ran into, but the support we got was phenomenal. So we were able to make it through and get through to go live, and nobody on the business side was impacted at all by it. It was a great experience. What about your thoughts, Troy?
Well, I think RDMA was really the biggest issue that we had run into. And I think you covered it, but RDMA, remote direct memory access, just allows multiple physical computers in a cluster to share memory amongst one another without having to use the other system's operating system. So super fast technology for sharing. Anyway, as JC stated, we just had The support was phenomenal from Nutanix, and we were able to really just nail down the issue and get it taken care of. And I think that's all I have for that one.
Okay. Were there any other things where you say, okay, this was really good, or we would have liked to seen some form of improvement? I mean, there's a lot of different groups that come together. You're working together with many partners. You had Nutanix in the mix. You had a hardware vendor in the mix. You probably also had something like a system integrator in there. Any challenges beyond just the purely technical part that came up?
Well, yeah.
So I was just going to say that with our third-party integrator, just first time working with them, and first time for us working with a third-party integrator of that size. So of course there was a lot of learning curves there, and who's responsible for what and who takes what when, and the fact that we were building all these systems with little to no requirements. So multiple times systems would have to be rebuilt, virtual machines, because we didn't have any of the information available in front of us, and we were doing sizing as we were moving forward, the sizing requirements. So we didn't know them ahead of time, and that caused some pain for certain individuals on the team. And other than that, and I feel like with our hardware, it would be nice if let's see, what am I trying to say here? Sorry. The hardware, when we get it shipped in from that vendor, there's multiple changes that have to be done to it first to prep the hardware, and sometimes this step would take more time than we would have liked. JC?
Yeah, I would add too that SAP had some very stringent requirements as far as running the HANA databases in a virtual machine that required us to consume at least a full socket of hardware for each of those databases, because they did not support crossing NUMA boundaries and required a clock timer to come from the CPU directly to the VM. And so then you have to do pass through, which takes away your ability to migrate machines between nodes. And so that made things a little tougher. But Boz and team back in Waldorf have been working really hard on that. And it seems that limitation may go away really soon. So thank you, Boz, for that.
My pleasure, and thank you for the kind words. Maybe at this point, also a shout out to one of the support engineers that you guys mentioned before, Stein. If you see this, thanks again. He was an absolute rock star, as I'm certain that both of you will probably agree on. So,
absolutely.
With all that being said and done, and sorry about the confusion before, I should have probably handed over to one of you, but live recordings, things can go wrong, will go wrong. That being said, how did the initial go live go? Because this was a big project, a lot of stress, deadlines in place, etc. What was the experience during the go live? Troy?
Sure. Really, this is going to take very few words from my side. Go live went very well. We didn't have a single issue that we were made aware of from the IT side, infrastructure. And I think a lot of this had to do with the fact that Nutanix was so involved throughout the entire process with the dedicated support engineer and of course, Boz and Alexander being, sent to Boise multiple times to be on site, including during the go live period. And that just made for a very smooth go live. And I'll let JC add anything he might have.
Yeah, I completely agree. I mean, like the title of this session, it's really about having the right partners that you can lean on when you run into trouble. They're willing to take things back and not only look at a KB article and say, oh, here you are, sorry, there's no workaround, but take it back to engineering and get a fix developed in a short period of time. It was really amazing to see some of those things happen, and to have the support even on site. And then we had Stein there available all day long, every day, from a couple of months all the way through to our go live. So just an amazing support experience.
Excellent. I'm very happy to hear that, and thank you for your trust and for those kind words. I'm also very happy that everything went well at the end, even with a couple of minor hiccups. With all that being said and done, maybe just a couple of closing questions from the Nutanix side. Based on the experiences so far, would you do this again? JC?
Yeah, I mean, if you mean would we implement S4 HANA on HCI with Nutanix, absolutely. Like you said, we were a little bit ahead of the curve as far as this being a proven deployment, and ran into a couple little hiccups, but that all got smoothed out. We had a great go live. Yeah, I don't see any reason why we wouldn't do this again. Any thoughts, Troy?
I'll just piggyback on what you said, and I agree. We would definitely go through this process again with Nutanix as a partner. Buzz?
Excellent. I'm very glad to hear that. I mean, in my own experience, things can and will go wrong, especially as projects tend to grow in size. But I'm happy that you had the feeling that we had your backs. Maybe just as a closing up question or a wrapping up question, if you could change anything throughout this entire process, doesn't have to be technical, could be anything affecting it, just to make your lives easier, should you have to go through a similar process again, what would that be? Troy, any thoughts on that?
Definitely. Requirements, upfront requirements. I think that was the number one. Bang your head against a wall. Having to build systems over and over again because you don't have the right information. In this day and age, I don't think it should happen. So again, if you can go through all your sizing exercises and stuff first, and have the information you need at hand when it's time to build, I think that would make things a lot less frustrating. JC?
Yeah, I would definitely agree with that, Troy. It was a little frustrating for us, but at the same time, they had to start building demo environments really early, and then they ran through the workshops where the sizing was actually determined. So again, that goes back to why we chose an HCI solution like Nutanix, was for that scalability, being able to just add a building block when we needed to. So we were never too far behind the curve on that. If we got wind some new systems were coming, we could get a good estimate, order a couple of nodes, and be ready to build it, and then maybe scale it a little later if we needed to. So the flexibility was key to the lack of requirements. But yeah, if we could change it, we'd prefer to have requirements.
Okay, that sounds like sensible advice. That being said, with everything going on in the world at the moment, there's a virus that is going on throughout the world. I'm assuming that has impacted your timelines, your future plans, that might have changed the pace. What does the future in that sense look like for this entire project? It's been impacted. Any changes to it that you can share, JC?
Yeah, it's definitely had an impact on the project. I mean, companies across the globe are trying to conserve cash and reduce spending because their supply chains have been impacted. They may not be selling as much to customers. So, we're no different. We've slowed down on the project during this time. We've got some internal teams working on some things to prep for the next phase, but we're not currently working with our system integrator. That's been put on pause until the world calms down a little bit. But we're excited to pick back up as soon as we can and move forward with the next phases of the project. Troy?
JC, I think you covered it well. We had to tighten the reins a little bit internally and slow down to what we could manage without a third-party integrator. And I think it's just a slow roll forward until there's less unknowns in the world today.
Okay. Sounds good. Then I hope that we can continue to work together because from my end, I can only say it's been an absolute pleasure working with the two of you and also the extended team at Simplot. Thank you for the trust that you put in us, in myself and my colleagues. Thank you for being here and talking about your experiences. And with that, I'd like to wrap this up. Thank you at home for watching. Hopefully you found this session as good as we have, and see you soon. Thank you and goodbye.
Thank you, Boz.
Thank you, Boz.
Thank you, Jason. Thank you, Troy.